Christopher Murray, the director of the Institutes of Health Metrics Evaluation, joins me to discuss the implications of the 8 billion mark. Christopher, should we start by saying congratulations to the world? But again, let me start by asking the significance of the world population hitting 8 billion.
Well, it's certainly a milestone of the growth population in the last century, particularly. And we are, as you mentioned in the program already, population is starting to slow, and we do expect the world to peak out at about 9.5 billion globally in the 2060s, but Africa will keep growing right to the end of the century, we suspect.
And the statistics show that Africa has the youngest population in the world. This should be a plus if you look at it deeply, but has Africa been able to take advantage of this young, vibrant population?
Well, if you look historically at economies that have reaped what's called the demographic dividend, when you have a lot of young workers, and they are a large fraction of the population compared to children and compared to the elderly, that demographic dividend really had a huge effect in parts of Asia. And Africa should be able to benefit from that, but it comes when fertility drops and you have more people in the workforce than you have at either ends. So probably it's in the future where Africa will reap the demographic dividend. And as somebody said on the program already, that's only going to happen if you deliver education, particularly to young women, as well as deliver quality health care.
So in other words, the growth is relatively tied to better living and health.
It is. For it to have that economic effect, it's going to need a more educated workforce as well as a healthier workforce. And I think, Africa is one place. When we look around Africa, there is, declining fertility. They're moving towards that demographic dividend zone in Eastern and Southern Africa. But I think it's really the Sahel band that is the countries in the Sahel where climate change and population growth may interact. And that may be a challenge in the next generation.
Now, let's throw China in the equation. One of the reasons attributed to China's strong economy is its population. Now, what can Africa learn from them and possibly maximize its vast human resource?
Well, if you look back at China, it's a great comparison because they started with very high fertility in the 50s and 60s. And then there was a period of mass education, improved health, and a rapid decline in fertility when women got more educated, became more active in the workforce, and then they had that demographic dividend. They had more workers compared to every other age group. And now fertility in China is probably too low. It's only 1.1 children per woman in China. And they're going out of the demographic dividend into a period where the workforce is actually declining. So you get this window of the demographic dividend for about 30 years or so. And it's something that you want to be primed to be ready to take advantage of.
Chris, there seems to be this fear by some. They still think that a growing population is a disadvantage to some parts of the world. What's your take on that?
Well, I think you can't just say, is it growing or not? You need to ask the question, what's the age makeup of the population? And what we know is that you get that advantage, the demographic dividend again, when there are a period where there's more people in the 20s, 30s, 40s than there are at younger ages. And that comes from having had growth, but then fertility coming down. And that's the historic pattern for the demographic dividend. It's the structure of the population rather than the numbers. But there is an issue when you have to add into the mix climate change, because that's going to be a new type of stress in some countries where maybe food agricultural outputs, because of the temperature, will be going down. And that will put extra stress on some communities and may lead to migration related to climate. Put that together with helping provide the schools, the clinics, and hospitals, that adds some extra challenges for governments, for that government policy we heard at the beginning.
Christopher Murray, many thanks for speaking with us.
Sure, my pleasure.